I think I've said I'm very interested to see like 700 times during this episode. Hello and welcome to Noobs in Progress. My name is Nathan, and here with me I have
Eat the Murphy, Nathan Beatty's friend, despite all things.
Despite all things. So, how have you been?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. Like I think I told you before, I took this week to just focus on writing a new series, new book.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Oh, okay. Well, so I took time off from the studio stuff to focus on doing just my own little project. But it's really, really fun. It's one of those things where, you know, when you actually get a chance to, as we do our palette cleansers, it's kind of a palette cleanser from the grind of the studio work to work on just my own project, and it's really, really coming along. I was working on the script just before I started talking to you right now, so it's actually, I'm really good. How about you, my friend?
Doing all right. I'm anxious for the weekend. I'm looking forward to being able to, you know, relax for a little bit despite the children. What are we here for, Ethan? I have no idea.
Me neither. Thanks, everybody. Good night, Johnny Sins.
Good night, everybody.
No, we are here for a very, very special day. The day I've been looking forward to the most. Day that is officially known as Falcon and Winter Soldier Day. My friend, it is the premiere of the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we are going to have an awesome watch party with some of our friends and check out this movie, and then of course we're going to talk about it. So,
but we wanted to record a little bit like pre-show thoughts. You say you're excited. Like what are your pre-show thoughts? What are you expecting? What are you hoping? What are your wishes?
I am a huge fan. I am a huge fan, as you can tell from the shield behind me with this.
Yes.
That way. The shield behind me. I'm a huge fan of Captain America. He's my favorite character from the MCU. I'm also a huge fan of Anthony Mackie and Falcon. And of course, Bucky / Winter Soldier. My favorite movie in the MCU is Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So, knowing that this show is very much attuned to that, I'm ecstatic about it. I try to stay away from the reviews and stuff because I mean, obviously, there's no point in looking at reviews when I watch the show, anyways. But I saw one quick minute of these streamers, or these, I guess, YouTubers that do reviews of different things. They got an advanced screening of it, and in that first minute, they were beaming about how much they loved it. And they also had an interview with the director, and she was on there talking about briefly, like giving spoilers about some of the things they were trying to do with this show. And so for that minute and a half I watched of that, it affirmed any and all hopes I had for this show.
Awesome.
How about yourself?
I'm very interested to watch it because I know it's essentially going to be more of like Captain America Winter Soldier and more of like the last half of WandaVision, like more Marvel Universe stuff, which I'm excited about. One of the things I'm interested to see why they didn't release this first. There's got to be a reason why this wasn't the first MCU show to be released. Because WandaVision was a gamble because of the slow burn, but it is interesting to me why they picked the bizarro weird show to be the one to be like, hey, this is Marvel's new entrance into television. Right. You know, there's got to be a reason. Like, it could be something that has nothing to do with anything, and it could have just been a scheduling thing. But I'm going to be interested to see if there's a plot reason. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
That's what I'm thinking that's partly probably a plot reason. But I know one thing too was how WandaVision, I believe they finished all of their filming, or more or less nearly all of it, before the pandemic really hit. I know that the Falcon Winter Soldier show did get their filming got interrupted by it and slowed down because of it. I'm more or less in your camp. I believe probably that WandaVision, or Wanda, you know, has some kind of a role into this show, or Vision has a role in this too.
I bet you it probably has to do with the hex, with the Westview anomaly. That's going to come up probably in some way, shape, or form. I'll be interested to see. I'm really excited because it's like, yay, more of that stuff. So, you know, which is I love.
Well, plus, we have to give it the benefit of the doubt. Everything that MCU has done, you know, has been so deliberate, and they scheduling the way they have done it. It has been on purpose for a reason. Has played out well. So I don't imagine they're going to start changing things up now by having careless errors when they release things.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So we're actually going to hit pause right here for the show itself now. Okay, we're back, and we just finished watching the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Ha! That was an interesting... Wow. So what'd you think?
I loved it. I definitely loved it. It felt very much like it was a continuation of the world that, Marcus McFeely and the Russo brothers had established with going back to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Getting into the weird nitty gritty details, it looked like a movie. The actual cinematography and the direction, it looked like a movie. So I really enjoyed it. What'd you think?
Oh yeah, I liked it too. Oh yeah, by the way, spoilers. Sorry.
yeah, spoilers. Yeah, make sure. Yeah.
Spoilers. Okay, but the scene with Bucky and the therapist and those really close shots, I was like, that is awesome. Like it was just, I was very interested to see how they did it, because they made it feel like Captain America and the Winter Soldier, but it also felt like its own thing entirely, like a extension of it,
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't just trying to emulate what made Captain America and Winter Soldier work, or anything the Russo brothers directed or anything like that. You can understand how it's in the same universe, but it still felt its own entity.
Yeah.
And one thing I realized too, when Bucky was kind of on his, I guess, date with the awesome, gorgeous bartender there, it hit me as far as what they pretty much did beautifully was they took Steve Rogers and split him in two, and they gave him kind of the honorable charm and woes and put it into Sam, and they gave him the survivor's guilt and being a man in his hundreds in a modern world, and warrior and a soldier's dilemma into Bucky. Beautifully. So it still feels like you're able to be in a Captain America's world, but it's its own thing.
They did a very good job at taking Captain America and extending him beyond, because I think that was with the MCU phases 1, 2, and 3 was the Iron Man story and the Captain America story. I think in a lot of ways, it was their full arc, but this is a way that they're able to continue the Captain America story beyond Steve Rogers. It's so different than WandaVision, vastly. Even the end of WandaVision reminded me of the Avenger movies, near the end bits, because there was a lot of humor. There was humor in this. It was much more subtle. They aren't shying away about stuff with the blip. They aren't shying away about race issues. They are hammering it on, and I'm here for it. I'm like, yes, please.
What's funny about it too is there was a common thread that I did notice between WandaVision and this. Now, not the beginning of WandaVision, later on, much later on. The thing is that we're seeing characters that are in the MCU that have had to pretty much, they've tried to keep a much more 4-quadrant upbeat tone to appease audiences quickly. They do casually dip their toes in the characters having to deal with grief and that kind of stuff, but it's not meant to be the focus. These shows, they can take their time and make it the focus. It was very clear with WandaVision, the biggest central theme is a person dealing with grief and what that does to them.
Yeah.
It seems like that's part of this too, in a different way. We're seeing how Sam is dealing with the idea of he was blipped. Him and Bucky both, but Sam was blipped for 5 years, and how it's coming back isn't just all cookies and cream. And then also the idea that his best friend, one of the greatest American heroes of all time, and how he pretty much entrusted him to be the next coming of Christ, and he's like, I can't do that, and I don't want that. And like you said too, dealing with race issues, and then Bucky having to deal with the fact that he was literally a stone cold assassin for 90 years or so, and he's like, I have so much making up to do, and I don't know that I can. And he's like, it's a broken man trying to, how do you deal with that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So both these shows are actually saying, let's take the time to delve into these characters' real psyches and what they're really dealing with on a much deeper level, and I love that.
That opening, holy crap. The opening compared to the rest of it's crazy. It's another example of them doing something very well, and when you look back on it, you're like, how the hell did they do that? It shifted from an intense, the first 5 to 10 minutes is an intense battle scene. Yeah, it's Falcon, and it was awesome. It was amazing.
It was movie theater quality action.
Oh yeah. I think one of the best flight action scenes I've seen.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got to be in the top 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah.
All film, you know.
Yeah, just right out of the gate. And
Yeah.
then it switches to a like intense spy drama. Like there's hardly any action in the rest of it. Like except for
Yeah.
there's a little bit, with this secret group. But that's it.
And the flashback with Bucky too.
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
that
what
too.
I liked.
Mhm.
I liked that it did though. That's kind of the whole point of the show, is to show the dichotomy between the two characters. You
Mhm.
see Falcon, it's bright day, it's big, huge open landscape. He's flying around, he's fighting a bunch
Mhm.
of guys. Then when you see Bucky, it's insular. He's very clandestine, very quick kills. It's showing the different styles of characters they are and different ways they do things. Bucky's covered up and he's wearing long hair.
Mhm.
He looks very grimy. Falcon's out there in bright colors. It's meant to show the complete inverse relationship of how these characters
Mhm.
fight, how they act, and who they are.
Yeah.
And I love. You read my book Slade and Ash. I'm not as I shouldn't have plugged here, but in Slade and Ash, I wanted to do the same thing where I wanted the first book to be showing the characters individually on their own
Mhm.
before they come together.
Mhm.
With this, yes, Bucky and Sam have a relationship, but this episode, they're not in together at all.
Yeah.
You see their own worlds individually before they come together, so that you understand them clearly and fully before they have to become, a couple, a duo or whatnot. And I think that's a good way to approach things.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was very interesting how they did a very good job of setting up both of the characters and setting up their journeys. Like you could see it just in the way that they're like, it's obviously they're setting up Bucky to be like, he's trying to make amends for his 90 years of being an assassin and also trying to live in the world. And he doesn't have, this is one thing that's interesting. He doesn't have what Cap had, what Steve Rogers had, because Steve Rogers, he wasn't a criminal. Like he was a hero.
Right.
So he was able to lean on like, oh, I guess another invasion. I can not focus on the depression of my life for a little bit. Whereas with Bucky, he doesn't have that. Like he can't, it's not like the government is going to show up and say, aliens are attacking, you need to help. Like he's dealing with what he's dealing with and he's just got to figure it out,
Even seeing him in this, where it opens with him coming from his nightmare where he's sleeping on the floor because he's like Steve mentioned in Captain America Winter Soldier, how sleeping in a bed is uncomfortable for them pretty much. It's to show that he's at that point. The whole journey that Steve had to go through all his MCU movies, Bucky's kind of at the beginning of that, and it's even harder for him.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's by himself. Also, he's kind of not liked by society or by he's pardoned. He is pretty much seen as a fugitive and criminal. He's not in a good place.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, because he was an assassin for a spy organization that infiltrated the highest levels of government. It's going to take a lot to come back from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to comment on was just that my actual favorite part of this episode wasn't even any of the amazing action. It was actually the scene where Bucky is going with the older Asian gentleman to the bar. And I say Asian gentleman because I thought at first that he was from the war. He was his old buddy. There was an Asian gentleman with them in the war. The fact that we saw it was planted very, very well earlier on, where we saw Bucky, of course, assassinate that young man. Then we go to later on in the episode where we see Bucky out with this guy, and we see Bucky. It's like, why is he being social with him? What's going on here? And it's like, oh yeah, this is in fact the father of the guy Bucky killed. And actually seeing, it's show don't tell. We see him dealing with the grief and trying to figure out how to reconcile his shame and guilt with that. And I just love seeing that. And I love seeing that he couldn't. There are times he just can't do it. He can't openly admit what he's done, regardless of whether he's brainwashed or was controlled by somebody else. He still, will always bear the guilt of the I did this.
Yeah. I thought I was with you. I thought it was I wasn't sure if it was like an old war buddy. I thought it was more like, moved in, the guy across the way is old and he connects with him just because technically he's that old, or close to that old. And so I just thought it was like that. But then when I realized who he was, I was like, oh, damn. Like, and then they explain it in that Bucky is trying to make amends. So he basically has a list. It's essentially My Name is Earl list of all the people he has wronged and he needs to So that's so it's a Falcon, and my name is Earl.
Right. And I love how that list is like very, very long, and he crossed off one name in the episode, and he had one name he had circled. I think it showed one other name was crossed off, but it's like it's a massive list, and a lot of names are not crossed off.
Well, you think 90 years, I love how they're handling this universe like the comics. And I want to clarify, not like the Marvel comics like we know now, where they go 17,000 different directions and then reboot and then which they may eventually do, but they've done a really good job of basically making this all happening within one world and continuing the story and exploring things like I mentioned earlier. I love how they're going into the blip and how, like, what that does to a world when billions of people disappear and then 5 years later reappear exactly as they were when they disappeared. Like, that has insane ramifications.
Things you cannot possibly fathom.
And they're going into it. Like, they're not getting into like the really scary stuff that I think there was one episode after the WandaVision we were talking, and I was talking about some like pretty horrifying things that probably happened. They're not going into that stuff, but they're going into the more extended ramifications, which I think is very interesting and isn't just the straight horror show that the immediate ramifications. And 5 years is a long time. It
is a long time.
That's enough time to not enough, but it is, at least from a functional standpoint, definitely not from a mental, but from a functional standpoint, society has begun to rebuild at that point. And then they come back, and now it's a whole other thing again. I love that they're going into it, and I love that they're keeping this all in the same universe. And another piece that is very interesting to me is the MCU doesn't really have the luxury that comics have. In that comics, they can go down a path, and then when they decide, we want to reset, so they just reboot back to the original. The way they're handling this, it's almost like they're saying to themselves, we're not allowing ourselves to have that luxury. Yeah. When Robert Downey Jr. says, I'm done, like, it's been great, it's been a fun ride, but I don't want to be Tony Stark anymore. Right. Then that means that Iron Man dies, or Iron Man goes away, or whatever. And they have to now figure out, okay, what does that mean for the story? Same thing with Chris Evans and Captain America. And they're letting the story continue in that way. Now, there may eventually come a point where they decide to hit the reboot button and say, okay, we're restarting the MCU, or we're doing Ultimate Marvel or something like that.
And then with the Marvel, like you said, with the Marvel track, it seems very much more they are in sync with each other. They are planning things out, and they're taking it to the full extent. What happens, and we got to deal with it. And I actually like that a lot. And now you and I, we do a show, CIP, right? Creativity in Progress. We create a narrative together, like a writer's room, essentially. And the idea is that while we're doing that, we sometimes will change certain things here or there and kind of try to come up with the best solution. And as we go forward and kind of before we get to the final story. And then but ideally, once we've come up with an idea, we stick to it and go from there. I love the idea of having restraints when you make a story. Yeah. Because it forces you to be that much more creative. Like you said, Bob Downey Jr. is gone now. What are we going to do? Well, since he's gone and that's it, we have to go forward. We can't go back. We can't change it. We have to just be active and keep thinking. I love that.
Yeah. And that makes it feel like a more realistic world, because that's the way the real world is.
Yeah, 100% agree.
And that doesn't even mean like a death. Like if you move away, or you or have a falling out or something, or just you drift away from a person, that person stops being a character in your story, in your life. Yeah. And they may come back, they may not. We don't know. It's the world. And that makes the MCU seem even more realistic, despite the fact that it has a sentient robot.
This was a very, very, I loved it. It's a very well made show. They took their time. They clearly put effort into the writing. I couldn't have enjoyed it more. And like I said, I love the journey. It seems that the journey that both of them are going on to be very different, but both of them will be very engaging.
It's going to be fun. Definitely going to be a different ride than WandaVision. Definitely a different ride.
Different ride. Yeah.
We haven't even talked about Bucky, or not Bucky, Sam's buddy, over in the thing with we haven't even touched on that guy.
I mean, there's so much we can touch on.
That's my prediction for him. He gonna be dead. I think
extremely dead.
Extremely dead. Yeah, it's extremely dead. He's dying. Yeah. He's dying. Anyway, so
he's dying.
He's dying.
Let's end on the note of this wonderful show by having a character die. Review.
He's dead. He just don't know it yet. Okay, so all right. Well, I think that's about it. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this puppy up?
Yes, thank you very much for watching this with me, bud. This is fun. This is a great one. I know you made some choices and some sacrifices to make it happen, and I appreciate it.
Totally fine. I had a good time, and also I didn't have to work today. Yay!
Hey.
Oh, geez, just doing that little yay dance kicked my camera.
You're so happy you shook the whole room.
Yes, I just anyway. So thank you. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel, our Twitch channel, and a lot of the stuff we do is on podcasts. So check out the Creativity in Progress Network anywhere you find your podcasts. Thank you so much I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Any sense.
At Geek Insider, we foster relationships with those in the geek sphere so we can give our audience the insider view of entertainment, tech, and more.